I'm delighted to introduce Adrienne Williams. She's a former educator, an Amazon delivery driver. She's seen firsthand the harm inflicted by technology on students and workers, and this moved her to begin her work as a labour organiser. Adrienne has worked to shut down Amazon warehouses, protect pregnant workers' rights, and hold Amazon accountable. She's a fellow at the Distributed AI Research Institute, who we're big fans of from the branch, and I'd like to hand over to Adrienne to introduce her most recent work, which again I think will be of interest to not only our tech members but anyone working in postal, and I know our telecoms members who are interested in things like surveillance on vans or dash cams. Are like, this is a topic that you should be listening to as well. So Adrienne, hopefully you're on the end of the line.
Yeah. Hi.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm not even sure where to start. So
tell us how.
I
gave you a very brief intro. Tell us how what sprung you into get into your line of research now, and what propels you to keep going.
Yeah, so I think I first started kind of paying attention to all this when I was a junior high teacher, and I didn't quite understand the difference between like regular public schools and then corporate charter schools. And I think in the UK, those are like corporate academies.
Yeah.
And so I worked for a CZI charter school, which is Mark Zuckerberg. And they created the online learning platform that they say is personalized learning. If you ever hear that word, just know it's a crock of BS. And so when I worked there, I started noticing some things with my kids. They would say, you're only supposed to have your kids online for 90 minutes a day, but my kids were online like 5 and 6 hours a day, and then expected to do 2 hours of online homework a night. And I was seeing both physical issues, back pain, neck pain, migraines, eyesight breaking down, and then emotional issues, just the agitation. I could watch my kids from the beginning of the year when they came in just like, happy to be at school. And then by the end of the year, the agitation of what that kind of school day was doing to them led to like more fights. It was more dangerous for teachers, just kids just shutting down. I'm not doing this. I don't want to do it.
So a good example of technology kind of thoughtlessly deployed with the outcomes being made worse for everyone, except for maybe the people that own those companies.
Exactly. And I spoke with people from the corporate side. So they're doing the curriculum supposedly, and even that was mediocre. And I had one corporate employee say, yeah, this is just a front for data mining. So the education was secondary. And then the thing that really scared me the most was, so I only lasted there for about 2 years. And then I was like, I couldn't take it anymore. I felt like the weight of the whole school was on my back. And it was too much. What really scared me about that school was that they have this system where they say, like, we have mentors. So every teacher had a mentor group, and you were supposed to kind of guide your mentees and things like that. But you were also supposed to do these one-on-one check-ins at least once a week with your kids. Now, Priscilla Chan would say, mentors are just for socio-emotional learning, which is a big buzzword right now, but nobody seems to be able to explain what that really is. And we got zero training on it. And then the CEO at the time, Diane Tavener, who actually created Summit Public Schools, where I worked, says, no, mentors are for college readiness. But I had 7th and 8th graders. These are like kids between 12 and 13. 7th graders, especially 12-year-olds, they don't care about college. That's not where their mindset is.
Far away for them. Yeah.
Far away from that. So what I was checking in with my kids were talking about, eating disorders, self-harm, sexual abuse, parents getting deported, gang violence. I mean, things that were way above my pay grade. And it felt to me like a way of getting around hiring, good qualified therapists and counselors that schools are supposed to have.
Yeah, sure.
The part that was scary to me is that as mentors, we were supposed to type in notes into our work issued computer about all of those check-ins. And that felt, it just felt wrong to me. Yeah, it felt nasty. And so I didn't do it.
So
And
you spurned from there to, and what did you do when you left there?
well, dumb idea. I thought, oh, I'll go work for Amazon. It's a solo job and I'll figure out how to get, I'll get my head straight. And I just
Yeah.
noticed the same problems. But I do want to make this point real quick that I don't think I was the only one who refused to write those notes.
Yeah,
And
sure.
so a year after I quit, they created this program called Along. And what Along does is that when you have those one-on-one meetings with your kids, you have to turn it on and it audio and video records those sessions. And those are going straight to Meta engineers. They literally fired all the Summit employees from their corporate side. So all of that information that usually in the US is protected by HIPAA laws that say like your medical records have to be
There's been
protected.
some exception made. Yeah.
They found a loophole to get around it. And so all that really delicate student information is going to Meta.
No, I didn't know
So
about
yeah,
any of this. I think it's another example of we need to, and I didn't know that Meta were running schools in the States. Like, that's another classic example of we need to see what's happening there and what they get away with and be vigilant that it doesn't happen here. Like, that's all stuff that you could well believe you start hearing about in a couple of years. Like, we're only a couple of policy changes away from that. That was really...
it's already
really
happening.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Where you guys are at in terms of ed tech.
Yeah.
So it's
Do you
they're
know
very
what
slippery.
Do you know what they were using that data for? Why were they mining all of that data?
So at the time, because I didn't understand very much of it, my thought was there was this big kind of back and forth about Meta wanting to create Instagram for kids. And in my head, I was like, well, where else are they going to get this kid's information but there? But that was just a guess. I don't know. But what I'm finding out now is that all of this stuff is just being used to train large language models and AI systems. And so it's basically free labor. They could pay somebody to train their AI. They could pay writers to take their work. They could pay artists to take their work. They don't want to. And so a way of getting access to free data through the schools, especially on kids.
I heard this about games, like a lot of children's games that are out there are collecting like what children respond to and their interests, and it helps build it into essentially marketing and advertising stuff.
And I guess what we know about things like ChatGPT is that it's mostly trained on the internet, but it's big, but there's only so much of the internet. But then they're getting all of these real life interactions and examples that they wouldn't necessarily be seeing even if these kids did have their own Instagram. So it's like a whole new source of information.
Listen, the way that technology infiltrates our lives and we don't even think about it is huge, and maybe a whole separate series of different Utah-based shows. But I didn't know any of that about your background, Adrienne. Actually, it's really interesting. But the Amazon. So you left there and you thought, right, okay, I know a much easier job. Let's go be an Amazon delivery driver. And how did that work out?
Because my degree's in graphic design. So like how I got here and how I got here doing what I'm doing kind of blows my mind too. But when I started at Amazon, it was right before the pandemic and almost immediately. So I was November 2019 that I started. And almost immediately I started noticing the same type of things like refusal to follow health and safety laws, actual laws, intense surveillance. So at the time, I quit a month before they put those cameras in, but they still had things for drivers like the Mentor app.
Is that what you're talking about?
So it's cameras that face you inside the van, but the slipperiest thing I think are the ones outside the van, because this goes back to like forced labor.
Yeah,
and
this is the bit that I don't think is happening here yet, but I could definitely see either Amazon implementing it or Royal Mail or one of the other, whoever's got vans. We've had, some surveillance questions with our telecoms workers and people that drive British Telecom vans. Talk a little bit more about this unwaged labour that Amazon are kind of operating in a grey area to exploit.
Yeah. So I like to call them zombie trainers because they have no idea that they're training AI. They have no idea what the effects it's going to have on society. And they're not getting paid for it. So with the Amazon vans, those cameras are for a third-party company called Netrodyne. And they're on the inside, but they're also on the outside of the van. And so there is this technology that's called high-definition 3D maps. And really what that is just getting every inch and corner of a city, state, country, whatever. And whoever can get that to work properly, who can really get all of that road data, will essentially have cornered the market on driverless car technology. And so the Netrodyne has said, they say in interviews, it's like, oh, well, we're just about fleet safety. But then when you look at interviews from the co-founder, he talks a lot about driverless car technology and how Netrodyne has gathered the most road data. I know in the US, I'm assuming, well, your drivers don't use.
We don't really have Amazon drivers as such. What we have is people who rent out a van from a subcontractor and drive it around, but it doesn't have cameras or anything on it.
But they're Amazon
have
branded vans. Yeah.
There are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's Amazon branded vans. They're
Yeah.
they're kind of operated one step away from Amazon directly. But that wouldn't stop them selling a contract to someone like Netrodyne, like you say, and saying, right, well, you can
Yeah, no.
because they're essentially they're on the road 12 hours a day. No one's on the road more than Amazon.
So are they trying to compete with Google Street View, or is that a different kind of
No,
3D mapping?
it's for the autonomous driving. So
No, I
obviously-
get that.
It's
but
for,
Street
yeah.
View gives you a lot of information on what's on the road already, no?
So what's unique about the Amazon vans is that what it gives them is multiple instances of data from a road. So you might have a month's worth of data from one street. And that's helpful in training autonomous vehicles because then they understand how to maneuver on those roads better. Netrodyne has gathered like over 500 million, miles of road data. And so now you have companies like Hyundai, I'm sure there's others, I just haven't found them, who are partnering with Netrodyne to help them build driverless car technology for their companies. And they've admitted that like, hey, car companies can't afford to pay enough surveyors to equip enough cars on the road to create our own, data for these cars. But we can partner with Netrodyne, and then we can get it for free. And
Get it
so
for
they're
free by
admitting it's a job.
piggybacking
They're admitting it needs to be paid.
But they're piggybacking off the unwaged labor of Amazon drivers who are out there doing their normal job, but they're not getting paid for their second job, which is even more lucrative. And I think
More lucrative.
One of the things that I really wanted Adrienne to come on the show and to talk about for our viewers is that is something that we're going to see here. No two ways about it. And it's only a question of which company is going to bring it in. Is Amazon going to do the same thing here? Because there's huge investment. The UK, even more than other places in Europe, there's a huge investment in autonomous vehicles. There's some of the big tech unicorn billion-dollar companies are based in the UK that do this kind of mapping and autonomous driving. So it's only a matter of time before you stop seeing, occasionally you drive past a car with loads of cameras on it. It's going to be put on maybe your van, So it's something we want to keep an eye on here, but it's already happening in the States. So it's only a matter of time. Just like Amazon grocery, that happened in the States, then it was in London. And I think it's only a matter of time before it comes in. Has there been much? What's the responses been from sort of organised labour in the States about this?
Organized labor in the States. I feel like it's kind of a nightmare. There are a lot of people trying really hard to do good work and take care of people. I feel like the laws that are there's already a ton of laws on the books that say you can't, intimidate organizers, that you can't target organizers, that you can't union bust. Our issue isn't so much laws, it's that our country and our politicians and our government don't enforce the laws on big companies. And so you're kind of at a loss. Organized unions don't seem all that interested in this aspect of it. It feels to me, especially around Amazon, that it's this big like King Kong banging your chest thing that like, I'm going to be the one to organize Amazon. I'm going to be the one to take it down. And that no one person ever does any of this alone. And so I feel like there's kind of a missed opportunity to really engage with workers, engage with drivers, because they're using warehouse workers to train their AI also. And there's harm there for not just the workers in the warehouse, but then for these other third-party workers. And there may be other countries, but I know out of India, who are literally forced to sit and stare at what the workers in the warehouse are doing. To figure out,
Well,
to mark things that are happening.
It wasn't AI, it was Indian workers. So the background to this is that Amazon grocery stores, that one of their big selling points was like, we don't need people working in the shop. AI would tell us what you put in your basket. Well, what actually it was is Indian workers looking at what's in your basket and manually inputting it. So it was a big con. But this is, again, a lot of the stuff you see marketed as AI, it's just that marketing is actually workers somewhere being exploited, normally in the global south. And this is more of that.
Yeah. And the crazy part is, well, two things. One, AI is people. Like every aspect of it is people, whether it's the content moderation or the data labeling or literally just staring at a screen to mark things and check things. There's been reports out of India that the workers are like, my eyes have been ruined because even blinking might get me in trouble and get me fired because I can't miss a second. So there's just this like overwhelming exploitation that says your health, your body, your mental, stability, none of that matters. Just make our product look like we have told the public it's gonna look. Shoot, and I forgot my other point. What?
I was talking about one of the things I was going to say that you kind of alluded to was it sounds like the states, a lot of different unions need to work together, and I think it's going to be similar here. If we're to take on companies like Amazon, obviously we've had famously GMB, comrades at the GMB organise and only just miss out on a recognition ballot at the Coventry
warehouse.
Coventry warehouse fulfillment centre. And it's going to need a coordinated effort here between lots of different unions. Obviously, tech sector, we've got a lot of members in Amazon Web Services, which is a huge, very profitable bit of Amazon, and that's obviously delivery drivers and stuff as well. And it sounds like that's what no one's working together enough to combat, so nothing's happening.
No, not really. I mean, Teamsters, which is one of the oldest unions in the US, has actually made a really big move forward like a couple weeks ago, where they had sued Amazon and won a ruling that said that Amazon now has to be seen as co-owner, co-boss to the drivers. And so I'm hoping that that's, and I'm sure there's gonna be a ton of appeals and Lord knows when that'll go into effect. But if that can stick, there's a lot of leeway then to push for better, more accountability, better work conditions, things like that. And the beauty of that is that, at least in the US, wherever Amazon goes, they're setting the precedent for every other group in their industry. And back to the charter schools, that Zuckerberg school that I work for is doing the same for online learning and ed tech products. They're being seen as the gold standard. And so is Amazon, seen as like the gold standard of how we want to operate.
What they can get away with as well. I think that's the thing. I think one of the bits, like the really perfidious bits about Amazon, is that if we're, as a trade union movement and all our members watching this, if we're not increasingly vigilant to all the different ways they exploit labor, both here and abroad, the global South, America, we're going to be slinging our hook outside fulfillment centers for a day's work. Like that's the future Amazon has mapped out for us. And I think this is exactly why I brought Adrienne on the show. Like, I really wanted to highlight this is a global issue that we need to work together on. And if we don't, not only is possibly what I described happening, the increasing power of Amazon, but all those companies that until now have maybe been a bit more, by the book, they're going to look at Amazon going, why are we operating legally if Amazon continued to get away with it? And I'm not, it could be tax, where they pay their tax, how much of their profits they pay tax on. It could be how they treat their workers. They're going to look at that, Amazon are growing and creating this monopoly, we're going to do the same, and therefore it affects everyone. So that hopefully, just drawing to a close this show today, like, again, that the point of it has really been for us to try and draw in some of the issues that are perhaps seen as quite techie, not the ones we're talking about now, but actually they affect everyone, including the example about supposed ed tech, revolutionizing schools and education, but actually it's just data gathering to exploit.
That's all it is.
Exploit our kids, exactly.
And Amazon has their hand in that too. Jeff Bezos literally has Bezos Academy, Montessori schools. Like, who in the hell is letting their baby go to a Bezos Academy? But it's here.
But it's there. Well, again, something else we need to watch out for.
I mean, we've got those here, and the NEU is the National Education Union has been organizing stuff in those academies, but also I think lobbying against the academies as a thing that exists, because it shouldn't.
No, it shouldn't. Again, another example of where we need to work with our union brothers and sisters across all different unions to try and fight this stuff. Adrienne, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for joining us, talking about your work and your really interesting background. Really appreciate you taking time. I know it's early in the morning in California. We thank you for dialing into the CWU show, and hopefully we can get you on again, and we'll talk about some other work that the Distributed AI Research Institute are doing as well.